About their interesting. There was only a couple of them, so I grabbed whatever.
That's way cool though.
No, but I'm sure they actually have stone walls that are like, the stones are humongous. It's crazy, crazy stuff in it.
Hey, well, greetings, everybody. I'd like to welcome everyone to the February 26th, 2024 Idaho Springs City Work Session. We have three things on the work session agenda, starting with City Council annual training. And Carmen is with us tonight, and I also would like to thank her for the pizza that we're enjoying.
You bet.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have extra. Hi, Mayor and Council. Long time no see, long time never see for one of you, and Jeremy. Nice to be here, and I'm glad that you have carved out. We are on, right, John? Yes. Okay. Well, you've carved out a little bit of time to talk about legal issues. It's a good idea to do this not only for the new members of council that we have, but for those of you who are so seasoned in terms of being council members, it's good to have refreshers from time to time as well. I handed out something that I know looks incredibly fun to read, and it's, believe me, not expected that you read this tonight, nor am I going to read it to you tonight. What I've given you is roughly, 9 pages of legal fun that's intended as a resource for you, a reference, a little library, if you will, you can refer to from time to time on the various topics that are mentioned in what I gave to you. So please use that, or refer to that, keep that. Happy to email it to you. If anybody prefers it that way, I can send you either Word or PDF of this document as well. So you have this be saved somewhere. I'm happy to do that. Again, it's intended as a reference. So tonight, what I wanted to do was to cover, yes, some of the things that are in here, but also to ask you, council, if you have any questions, legal issues that come up from time to time that you would like to talk about. I'm happy to talk about anything that you want as well. You can drive this conversation and let me know what you wish to discuss if I don't touch upon it. What I will do then is sort of proceed through the things that I really want to get through and make sure that I address with you tonight. My plan is to be with you about 45 minutes to an hour. I know you have some other things to do in your study session, so I'll leave you adequate time to do that. So I will get through the things that I would really like to. As I do that, as I go through these various issues tonight, study session, as always, informal, interrupt me and say, hey, can I stop you right there? And we can take a little diversion to whatever you want to talk about. You can ask questions. Don't feel like you got to save them until I'm done. All right. So the first thing I thought we should address, or would be good to address, is something that I don't think I have ever covered with this group in particular, and that I think is a really good baseline issue to talk about from a legal perspective, and that is council roles and responsibilities. When you on board, actually, let me start with a question. When you on board, maybe you're a member, what kinds of material do you get when you on board from the city, if any? Or do you just come and say, hey, here I am? Like, I don't know, the code
CML
or
stuff.
CML stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Like maybe like just like a handbook for elected officials. I think that's
used to get Robert's rules.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Did you really?
I did. I was like, am I supposed to read this?
I know. Okay.
I looked at it.
Oh, those are insane.
Probably donated it.
So what I think is interesting, like I've served on boards and commissions, and sometimes in doing so, and I appreciate that this might be your perspective as well, you maybe run for office and say, hey, this is a great idea, public service, and the exact sort of machine in which you're entering, you're not even sure the details of it. And that's a fair, I think, maybe way to approach things. You want to volunteer. I think that, again, it's kind of useful to go over the basic structure of the city and how you fit into that, because I'm not sure if you've ever been told that. And it's germane to legal issues, which I'll hit on. So Idaho Springs is what we refer to as a statutory city here in Colorado. And in Colorado, there are statutory municipalities and home rule municipalities. As a statutory city, and there's statutory cities and there's statutory towns, but we don't even go through the distinction between those two. They are very distinct things. There aren't very many statutory cities. You're rather unique. But the difference between statutory municipalities like Idaho Springs and home rule municipalities is that as a statutory municipality, your legal authority, the powers that you have must be conferred explicitly by state statute, right? State law has to allow you to do things. And with home rule municipalities, they have this more sort of amorphous home rule power that's granted pursuant to the Colorado Constitution, which allows home rule municipalities to operate pursuant to home rule charters. Won't go too much into that because we're not there. We don't live in that world. We live in the statutory world where state statutes have to tell us what we can do, what we are authorized to do. As a statutory city, it's quoted in your materials, you as a city council possess, quote, all the legislative powers granted to city by law and other corporate powers of the city not conferred by law or some other ordinance on some other officer or agency of the city. So kind of two buckets there, legislative powers and all other corporate powers. As the city council, you retain and you have alone all the legislative powers of the city. And that, just like any legislative body, whether it's here locally or state or federally, that means you as a group have the sole authority to legislate, to adopt laws. Locally, those laws take the form of ordinances. That's why you see ordinances in your packet all the time. Most ordinances are codified, which is collected in a book, and that's our municipal code. No more magic to it than that. And those ordinances that are codified are those that are generally applicable to city, to all people. Some ordinances are not codified, that's rare, but those would be ordinances like land use approval ordinances, like the annexation coming down the road. Many of you have dealt with annex. We don't codify those, right? Because those aren't prospective. They're not like thou shalt not litter, or here's what you do to get a business license. Those kinds of things are in our code book, right? Other kinds of ordinances are not. So you have the power to legislate. You also have, pursuant to state statute, all the corporate powers of the city that you haven't delegated to someone else. And there are many corporate / administrative powers that you have, or your predecessors have, delegated to city administrator, right? And so now we're getting to sort of the structure of the city. You have delegated to current city administrator Andrew Marsh many administrative powers to do things like draft the budget that you then review and adopt, to maintain appropriate HR policies, to oversee generally department heads. Lots of administrative powers you bring into the city administrator so that you as a group don't have to do that stuff, right? And spend your time on that. You can instead spend time legislating and making policy. You do also, even though the administrator oversees department heads, this is really interesting and somewhat unique to you in statutory municipalities. You as a group also do hire directly, have the power to hire, fire, and discipline. Pretty good list of folks, including the judge, city attorney, police chief, and the heads of public works, water, wastewater, also the building official and the city planner. Those are individuals that you have power ultimately to hire, and fire, and discipline, even though in the day-to-day they report to Andy. That's kind of unusual, right? But I want you to be aware that that's your power. For also important to know, for those city employees who are not department heads, they're employees, the department heads' respective employees. It is their sole power as department heads to supervise, hire, and fire those people. And right, so the sort of like chain of command, if you will, right, or org chart has you appointing several folks, and those folks supervising lots of folks beneath them. And I want to point that out once you're aware of it, and it's on your radar screen, and how it is relative to legal issues and not just something anybody can talk to you about, is you as city council and individual city council members enjoy a certain amount of qualified immunity under the law for your actions as city council members. You as a group are covered when you act in your role as a city councilor by our insurance provider, CIRSA. Were you to be individually named in a lawsuit as a city councilor, which has happened unfortunately, and you stayed within, again, your role as a city council member, you would enjoy coverage, right? You would be insured. You wouldn't be on your own to defend yourself. In contrast, if you were to perform an act outside of your role as city councilor, if you were to step outside and not stay in your lane, then you lose that qualified immunity. You risk losing that insurance coverage, that protection of the city, that provision of defense counsel if you were to be individually named.
What does that look like, Carmen? What is not staying in your lane? Give us a couple of examples.
As we just touched upon, hey, hi Jenny, employment issues. I've unfortunately had the experience of some members of governing bodies sometimes mistakenly believing that, let's say, they have the authority to, put it in real terms, Ed's employees or the people that he supervises, that they could supervise, that they could give direction to one of the chiefs to try to intervene and direct employment decisions that are 2 levels below you, would be veering outside of your lane. And that's an example of risking losing your coverage and the protection that the law provides you. So any other questions? That's a good question about council.
Because I know it's happened, I just thought, and you nailed it, the one.
The one you're thinking of, yeah. And that's, you know, it's lovely to have that sort of protection. And I don't want any of you to lose that, right? Again, I know you get a very nominal amount of money, but you're largely volunteers and doing what you do. And in exchange, criticism, you can be named sometimes in litigation. You can be blamed for legal issues that you have nothing to do with. And so it's, I think, fair that you have some protections under the law generally if you stay within your role as a city council member. So we want you to stay in the circle of trust, as I say, in these parents. So that's what I wanted to touch upon, council roles and responsibilities. I wanted to also, as I think this topic is one I haven't spoken with this group before on, and I think it's timely, and it seems to be coming up in a lot of jurisdictions that I work with. I do, for those of you who don't know, work with several municipalities in giving legal advice. And in a lot of other places, and maybe you've seen it on the news as well, social media is becoming a big hot topic in local governments, specifically how social media can be used to communicate or not be used to communicate with constituents, with members of the public. Is it a public forum? Is it not a public forum? Can I, as a city council member, talk about city business on my own Facebook page, or is that a no-no? All of these issues are really good topical issues that come up all the time. I haven't heard a lot of you ask questions, at least of me, about social media, but I did want to touch on it in case any of you are active on social media and do have questions about what the heck you can and cannot do or should not do with your social media accounts.
And Carmen, I just want to inject.
Yep.
I am so glad that you are covering this, because unfortunately, John King spends a lot of time spelling rumors and things. Sometimes these things take on a life of their own, and it really, I'm saying probably causes as much harm as it does good, just because people think it's the gospel because they read it online, and
Yep.
you know, and it grows legs and is off to the races.
Yep. And true enough, right? Sort of bigger societal discussion there, it's true. Those things could just have their own lives. are a couple of different topics within social media. One is social media in terms of how the city operates social media. Police department, maybe other departments have Facebook pages, the city may as well. And my assumption is, correct me if I'm wrong, John, that someone on staff runs those social media pages that are actually city or city department
Yeah.
social media accounts.
I run all of them, everything.
I wanted to ask about that, because in the past, it was that it has to run sort of through your private account.
Yeah,
And the
we,
concern is always that
yeah, we
a
have a,
disgruntled employee could leave and
Have control
ultimate-
of that account.
and it happened
Yeah.
in our school, so that's why I'm
we have
actually.
an account,
Historical Society.
it's a legacy account for CJ Minor, which is a character from Idaho
Right.
Springs.
Okay,
And that's the account that is in charge of the city page, but you can now share administration of that too, so we have a process if we need to change that.
Good, all right, cool, thanks, John.
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think for a while, we upgraded a lot of our social media,
Yeah.
and then she left.
I do get tagged
There was a
frequently.
lot of, I know the historical element, my school had a problem with it, and I just wanna make sure, I didn't know if it still has to kind of go through a private
Yeah.
person, you guys just made up one.
It does, I do interact sometimes from my personal account because people will tag me in conversations.
Yeah,
But that's the same as an email, and that's all recorded, so.
okay. So we have, we have city accounts that are one thing. Staff operates those. Honestly, mayor and council, I don't necessarily want you to worry about how those are conducted. I have had occasions and whether it's chief or John, if there's a question about a comment and what do we do with this, they talk with me and we talk through the legal issues about what you can and cannot do with those. As counselors, I think the more pertinent discussion for you or piece of knowledge is for you about knowledge being sort of iffy at the moment is what you can and cannot do with your own personal social media accounts that you likely had long before you became a city council member. Maybe you've had them for years, and that you may want to or have, again, mention something going on with the city or city council, or when you decided to run for council or be up for appointment. What are the rules now with those accounts, right? Because certainly before you became a city council member or mayor, you wouldn't, I think, have any hesitation to block someone, delete someone, say exactly what you want to say in response to some choice words. And, should you or can you do that now as a city council member? And I think that's being a lawyer, right, law geek here for a minute. I think it's a fascinating question because it's the intersection of your private lives and your lives as individuals and your roles as city council members, as public officials. Where do those things, where does the law draw lines when those things inevitably intersect? Because
I have a
they do.
public profile for my counselor persona,
Yeah,
and that posts city council like meetings and, public comment kind of thing. And if I share it, I share that post from my counselor page. Even though I'm sharing it as Lisa, my personal stuff, I share it.
you
as
have a counselor page.
I have a counselor page.
Smart. Not necessary maybe, but smart, because you can
I like
categorize
it.
things. Yeah.
I like dividing.
Compartmentalizing, right, those communications that you undertake on social media, not a bad idea. Really for your convenience, right, and directing people to, hey, now I'm communicating to you as this, now I'm communicating to you as Lisa, right? So that's absolutely a fine idea. There are, well, you're not alone, or maybe I'm not alone in really wondering about this and thinking it's a really interesting legal question. As it happens, it has bubbled up to the United States Supreme Court. Funny enough, today, they heard in the SCOTUS of the United States Supreme Court, they heard oral arguments on two cases. The reference page 9 of the handout that I gave to you. There are two main cases that they granted cert on, one concerning a Michigan city manager, one concerning a couple of California school board members. And again, oral argument was today on these cases. You can never tell based on justice questions where they're gonna go. But these two companion cases that the Supreme Court was willing to enter the fray upon, and that I hope maybe summer-ish, we will get some guidance on, directly involve city officials who had Facebook pages, social media accounts that they began and maintained and established as private citizens before they gained office, and then posted something about their city job or city business on, and then blocked somebody's access in the case of the city manager in the Michigan case, and then also blocked a couple of parents who posted some critical comments in the school board case. Again, these officials established these accounts privately, had them before they became a city official, referenced some city stuff on it, and then blocked some people after some criticism or some other things were posted. Is that okay? And as you can tell, because I'm referencing oral arguments that occurred today on cases before the Supreme Court, we don't know yet, and I can't give you a definitive answer to what you can and cannot do yet. However, if we were to foreshadow or maybe project, also addressed here in the memo you have, last year, in the last legislative session, the state legislature, knowing that there was angst about this, right, and uncertainty about this, passed a law that specifically addresses local officials' use of social media accounts and private social media accounts. And I think that this bill, House Bill 23-1306, it's effective, well effective and in place. I think that it attempts to mirror the state of the law that many people believe to be true, which is this, and which was argued today in front of the court. Look, if you have a private social media account, even as a city official or a public official, and yes, you sometimes reference what's going on with the city or post messages about city business on your private social media account, so long as, one, you're not required by some law to have that account, which of course you're not required by any law to have Chuck Harmon's Facebook page, right? So long as that's not true, and so long as you are not using any city resources to support your social media account, then many believe, and it was argued today, then you should retain the ability as a private citizen that you always had before you were a city official to block people, to parents or constituents in your community or whatever. The argument being, right, that of course local government types like we would make, and we hope the Supreme Court will say, the idea being is that you don't lose your rights, all of your rights as an individual citizen when you take office, right? The ability to say, I don't want to hear that and I don't want to see that on my private account. You shouldn't lose that when you become a city councilor, right? You shouldn't lose the ability and the freedom of choice that you have in many ways when you take office. Which begs the question, what might the support of city resources look like on your private social media account? Accessing it on the city issue laptops, right? Which can be found out, I think. People much smarter than I about computers could, discern whether or not you're accessing or maintaining your personal social media accounts from any kind of city supported and city paid for technology. If you ask John to help you with some sort of issue, right, and figure something out, you're taking his time, that's a city resource. Well, now the private nature of your social media account could be lost.
What about tagging me in a conversation?
Fine. Great. Yep. I don't think that would be city resources. But really anything like staff
Depends on
time or
the
staff
apply, I
resources or
Yeah.
technology.
Gives me an out.
Can't help you with that. So again, I want to highlight that because it seems to be a sort of a hot topic in a lot of different jurisdictions, and one I encounter a lot, and I think one that's fascinating and one that's not resolved. So maybe not a great training topic, except I did want it to be on your radar screen as something that is a little bit in flux right now. And if you want to be particularly careful, Again, make sure you don't use any kind of city resource when you are accessing or maintaining or using that particular private social media account. Another thing you can do is suggested again in the handout that you have at the very end of the memo. I have some language that I suggest that you, if you want, it's not a directive of me to be clear. But at the very end of the memo, there is some language saying, hey, you can put on, if you want, your social media accounts and pages saying, this is my personal page. I am not speaking for the city of Idaho Springs. I am an individual. I don't use city resources to maintain this, right? I want to set you up to maybe fall squarely within the protection of an opinion that I hope comes out of the Supreme Court. So there's some sort of disclaimer language, if you wish to use it, that can also protect you with your personal social media accounts, if you want. Social media leads me to another topic that's not covered in the memo, but that is coming up quite a bit in a lot of jurisdictions, not of just jurisdictions I represent. And you might be aware of this depending on how much attention you pay to what's going on with other legislative bodies in Colorado. But that is what is going on with public comment in a lot of city council or town board of trustee meetings in Colorado, specifically virtually, although also in person, but a lot virtually. A lot of communities in Colorado and across the nation have experienced an interesting uptick in public comment, again, particularly virtually, when we have the open non-agenda item public comment period, your 3 minutes to say whatever you want to say. Unfortunately, there's been a real rise in communications, again, anonymously, virtually, sometimes under fake names, clearly, to spew what some would call hate speech, particularly lately anti-Semitic hate speech, given what's going on in the world events, things that are really not local government issues. And it's happened quite a lot in a lot of jurisdictions. We, knock wood, haven't seen that here in Idaho Springs, and hopefully we won't. But if there was any desire to sort of talk about public comment, I wanted to give folks the space to talk about that if you want to. If it's not a big concern here, that's fine too. I will give you the real sort of basic lay of the land, which is when you open up public comment, as we have here, as almost everybody has, to be a no holds barred, if you will, you can come to council with any concerns or comments that you have for 3 minutes. When you open that up, which again, everybody does, or at least used to, then you have created a little public forum. And folks can say whatever they wish to say to you, right? As long as it's protected by the First Amendment. And yes, what most folks commonly refer to as hate speech is indeed protected by the First Amendment. So is profanity. There are a limited amount of things that are not First Amendment protected. Truly threatening speech, I am going to, something individually to you or somebody in this room, mess you up. A clear threat to you. That's not First Amendment protected. That can be cut off. I'm sorry. No, I'm going to cut your mic. Inciting speech, the old fire in the crowd, right? Speech that would incite, right, some sort of disorder or a riot, fighting words, those kinds of things. Those are examples of speech that's not First Amendment protected, but speech that's really offensive to most people with ordinary sensibilities, that is about a group or a person or a type of people, is indeed protected. So, and that's a difficult thing to maybe hear and realize. If you place that here, as many jurisdictions have, you must allow it. And you got to sit up there and keep a straight face and be, people who have to endure
this.
that.
Is that the law? I don't think so. I think I can still make a face.
You can't make a face.
I'm gonna make a face.
That's fine. But it's, been asked lots of other places that we've had conversations about this lately. And it's, well, we can cut that off, right? And the answer is no, unfortunately, I'm sorry, that's not the case. Or I'm not sorry, that's what the First Amendment is there for, right? to protect all kinds of speech that you don't agree with, that I don't agree with, that many don't. But that has to be permitted. Having said that, if you would like, and many communities are doing this now in response to what has happened in a lot of other jurisdictions, if you would like to have guardrails on public comment that are more than, say whatever you want to say for 3 minutes, you can do that. And examples of guardrails that would be appropriate and lawful, as is true with any kind of First Amendment speech, you can regulate that kind of speech in content neutral, time, place, manner restrictions. Okay, so that means you, in any kind of a way that you want to allow or curb public comment that doesn't have to do with what's being said, you can do. You could put it at the end of your agenda, so it has less of a spotlight. And the spotlight is what some people really want at the beginning of meetings, is to vent what they want to vent and have it broadcast when everybody's still awake and paying attention. You could say, so there's no magic in 3 minutes, it could be 1 minute. Yeah, okay.
Why does it have to be, why can't they be anonymous though?
It's another guardrail.
Okay,
You could say, hey, I don't care what you want to talk about, but a name is necessary,
yep, okay, I
Right.
definitely vote for that one.
right?
So people have to give a name, and when they come to here, in other words, they're
Yeah,
online,
Like the olden days.
they have to give a name and their address,
Mhm.
where they're from. They can talk about whatever they want, but
I think
They do
that will
have to
cut down
identify
quite a
themselves.
few of the,
you know what,
Random.
I will post our meeting agenda, here's what we're talking about, you're welcome to come talk 3 minutes. And I've had people comment sort of within whatever we're talking about.
Yeah.
And my response falls under, what have we talked about? What is public, like, what is publicly available to us? Like, I don't respond to anything if I don't know, I say I
Right.
don't know.
Yep.
But if it's something that we have talked about in council, or
Sure.
I know, like, I can reference this meeting.
Yep.
Here's where you go and look, like, I just don't.
Yep.
And if it's hateful, like, just don't respond.
Yep. So different time limits, some communities have gone to again, these are examples, and I'm not saying you need to employ any of these, because again, thankfully, it's not a problem that we've encountered here much yet. But pre-registration, is something some communities have gone to. There's not just gonna be a spur of the moment, all of a sudden that, right, 6:59, there's a bunch of people, online, who are signing up to make 50 comments. You have to pre-register and decide to do that. And some communities and bodies are absolutely against that, saying, no, heck no. I want my constituents who had something that happened to them at 5:55 or whatever to be able to come to council. So again, none of these are things I'm telling you that you have to do. And maybe they're not something you need to address at all, because up to now, you haven't encountered that. But it is a lot of places. And I'm grateful that it hasn't appeared up here yet, because it's happened in a lot of different Colorado municipalities. So,
Ours tends to be, social media wise, ours tends to be in a community group that is not run by the city in any way. Like, we have a community group, and that's where you see a lot of the, if there's going to be vitriol, that's where we see it.
okay,
Like, it's not city run, although I know at least 4 of us are in that group and comment.
Do you get a lot of people that appear anonymous on the screen that watch?
I usually broadcast and ask for them to display a name before public comment happens, but we haven't had a public comment online since COVID.
Yeah,
and I'm,
I don't care if they watch anonymously, obviously, just that you're gonna speak.
yeah, some pretty, even offensive fake names were used when asked when prompted for names of the communities. It's people can get creative when they really wanna, get their
Carmen, I have a question.
message out there. Yes, sir.
What about screen sharing during public comments? Is that something we can disable as a,
Yes,
okay, because that's where, there's things that could happen there too. And Jimmy's got a question too.
I wanted you to, hey, Jenny.
Hi. Just kind of back to the, so just to get it straight, if somebody was to come in and, one says, hey, before your public comment, raise your right hand and state your name and where you're from. So, let's just say somebody said, well, my name is a good citizen and I live in the community. Would he or she be denied their 3 minutes of public comment?
Yeah, great question. You could, yes,
I say yes.
I think it's the mayor's, if the rule is you need to provide us a name. And it's a great question, Jim, because this is happening. And the name is, one place I was a couple weeks ago, Joe Q Public.
Still to give an address, right?
Right, well, in this place they did not.
Oh.
Or, can't think of any good examples now, but right, a clearly fictitious kind of a name. I believe your meeting, if you establish that giving a name is required, a legitimate name, and that name is provided, I think the chair of the meeting, mayor in our case, if he's there that night, has the discretion to say, yay or nay on the proffered name there.
But would that,
yes.
but a rule or a policy isn't the law, right? So, and I'm not arguing with you by any means. Please don't think that. I just, if something were of that, to try to avoid the conflict, like what we were talking about, a social media comment or something that went down like that, it just seems like this path is avoidance, and then knowledge of knowing that, they can't do that. But how people are,
Yes.
Can I make a comment to Jim? Jane, all our numbers and names and addresses and emails are online and available. So while you're on city council, everything is known about you. I feel that if someone's gonna come in and talk, whether it's by Zoom or in the meeting, I need to know who they are too. That's just for my own protection. I need, I don't know what they're gonna say. I don't know how they're gonna react to what I say to them. So I need to know who they are. That's how I feel about it.
Well, and I agree, but at the end of the day, that's just a want or a need from you and I, right? It's still not the law that they have to.
But we could make it that it's part of our what we expect in a
But
meeting.
isn't, when you look at our public comment sign up sheet, you have to put your name, where do you live, and your phone number. Like,
Oh, do you?
yeah, that's what, if you look at our public because I've done enough
But
public comment
getting-
where.
Getting to what you're saying, though, we're not governing laws here, we're governing rules.
Correct.
Policy.
Right. That's what I'm saying, Scott. Thank you. I don't know how to say without portraying rude by any means. I'm just saying that we're not, we as council or anybody, we're not. If somebody wants to remain anonymous or whatever, that's their discretion. That's not a, that's not a law. So now rules.
Guards against that, it says you can't talk unless.
I agree. I think that's for our safety,
It's our rule.
Even if you
for
put it
the
out.
chief to know who they are
We're
while he's in the
governing a
room.
rule of the meeting, not a law of the
Yeah.
I don't think that's anything different than we've been doing, like if you come and give testimony, if you speak, if you do public comment, you state your name and your, like, think about it, Wonder says, state your name, state your address.
Yep.
Yeah, so
That's already a rule that we're doing, like, this is nothing that we haven't done before.
we also have two distinct kinds of public comment.
Yeah.
We have scheduled and unscheduled public comment.
You're right.
And scheduled, you have to sign up significantly in advance, and the advantage of that is you could also provide materials to council. Unscheduled public comment, to Carmen's point, you could come up until the point that we take that paper and sign up for it, so.
Yeah. Jim, you're correct. You're all correct. And again, don't understand that I'm telling you, you must impose any of these requirements, but you as a group have the ability to decide how your meetings will run, right? What the decorum and the rules of interaction in this room will be when you have council meetings. And you can allow anonymous comments if you want, you can disallow them. Again, if guardrails can be put in place so long as they're not about what that speaker wants to say to you, right? And that's requiring them to give a legitimate name. It doesn't have anything to do with what they want to say. So that's a guardrail you could put on if you want to, but by no means am I saying that you have to, Jenny, or any of you. You don't. And I don't wanna, give you a solution in search of a problem here in Idaho Springs. If we are not experiencing that, great. I
Yeah.
am really happy for us because it's
Slap
been
on wood
a
and say,
drag.
let's keep it that way.
Indeed. Anything else on public comment? Before we plow ahead, okay. Something else, maybe this is the other last issue I wanna make sure I touch upon before give you another chance to ask me whatever you wanna ask me. And this is a perennial, and I know some of you have heard my training or maybe the training of CML or others on this topic before, but sort of springboarding off of the distinction we just made, or the observation that was made that we really have two kinds of public comment. That occurs at the beginning of the meeting on any kind of topic, on any kind of non-agenda item, say whatever you want to say. And then we also have public comment from time to time during hearings, right? You can sign up to give testimony on something that's scheduled for a public hearing. What's the difference? The difference is at the beginning of a meeting, right? That's something you allowed, generally speaking, right, in your policy making role to allow your constituents to come and express whatever they want to express to you. And that could perhaps lead to legislation. Let's say somebody expresses a concern about leash laws, or the heights of weeds, speed limit. I keep gesturing to the chief every time we talk about a legal issue. Sorry, chief. Yeah, so public comment could lead you to take legislative action. Certainly, that relates to that role that you have, and public comment that is provided in hearings that you have, and public hearings that you have, relates to another function that you have, which is the quasi-judicial function. And those are two very different functions that you perform. They have very different rules about how you operate. What's the difference? When you act legislatively, or administratively, which is what you do most of the time as council, is act legislatively or administratively, then you, again, are acting as a legislative body. You are setting policy that you're directing staff to implement. You're adopting laws that might or might not be codified, as we discussed. You're establishing the rules and the laws in Idaho Springs. Generally speaking, for everybody who lives here, or setting policy for broad categories of folks who live here. That's operating in your legislative role. When someone, an identifiable person or entity, like a company, comes to you and asks for your city's, but your permission to do something for them that's really in their interest and their interest alone. Whether that ask is, I want to build this on my property, or I want I want to sell booze, or I want to sell marijuana. When someone comes to you with a request or an ask of the city for permission to do something that is theirs alone, a right that they want for themselves. And when that application or ask comes to you as city council, you would have a hearing and decide whether that person or entity is allowed, right, to do what they want to do, the permission, the thing they're asking of you. You sit in judgment of that ask, of that application, just like a judge does. Then you're acting in your quasi-judicial capacity. And what you are tasked to do with staff's help in those hearings, and I know you've experienced them, except what you are tasked with, again, with staff's assistance, is to evaluate what's in the packet, the application, right? The request that's being made of you, the law that applies to that request, and staff's evaluation for your gee whiz of how staff thinks the law applies to that application. And then it is up to you, council, sitting as a judge, to render judgment, to make a decision on that particular ask from that particular individual for permission to do something, to get a license or to do something. Yes.
If someone has come and said something to you, would be behoove you to disclose that during the quasi-judicial, that I have had words with this individual or this company or whatever, and I made no promises, I said nothing, I said bring it to council. I mean, this is, that I ask, because this is a small community.
Yep,
You
yep.
know, we hear things out and about, just in casual conversation.
Yes, yep. And thank you. Great question, and exactly why this is important for you to know. Because it is a small town. You know many people who come before you and talk about all kinds of things, and there's nothing wrong with that. And as a matter of fact, it's part of your role, right, as counselors, to hear from your constituents, to talk to them, to be willing to talk to them about whatever they reach out to you about. And that is perfectly okay, so long as the things that people want to talk to you about and reach out to you about outside of this meeting room are legislative issues, are issues that are about policy, about citywide things. If someone does reach out to you as a council member about a quasi-judicial matter, which is what? A matter that's coming before you where you are going to sit in judgment and we will have a hearing. You can tell from the packet, public hearing on XYZ. You can see in the packet, you have a staff report that analyzes the person's application, right? And compares it to the code. Dylan now does that for us. Sometimes it's John, sometimes it's me. When you see that in your packet, you know it's a quasi-judicial matter. And when someone reaches out to you to talk to you about those kinds of matters, that is not okay. I shouldn't say that. It's okay for people to do that. It's human nature. We can't prevent that. That's all right. What you do with it as a council member, though, is different when someone reaches out to you on something like that. Why? Because in the law, we call those kinds of communications people want to have with you outside of the hearing ex parte communications, which is the Latin way of saying any kind of communications that happens when the other party involved isn't there, outside of the hearing. Right, so that's me, whether it's the public who wants to say, hey, I don't like this development, this proposed land use thing, and let me tell you why. One party, the public reaching out to you, or whether it's the developer, the applicant saying, hey, I want to make sure you understand why my application would be great for Idaho Springs. Either or, right? Those are both interested parties in something like a land use application. And if one of those parties reaches out to you, wants to talk to you, bend your ear outside of the hearing, you should do your best to cut that off as quickly as you can and say, I'm so sorry, I can't talk to you about that. Please, it's not that I don't want to hear from you. It's that I want to hear from you and the rest of council. It's that whatever you want to say to me needs to be heard by everybody. It's that what you want to say needs to be on the record so that it can form a basis of the decision legally, which it can't do if you just talk to me as an individual council member. So great question there. Your ability to differentiate between legislative issues and quasi-judicial issues is important because it does affect how you interact with your constituents in a very important way. And unfortunately, a way that might lead to some confusion and frustration on the part of constituents who are like, wait a minute, you represent me, why can't I talk to you about this, right? That seems kind of rude. And if you can then share with the person who reaches out to you that, hey, this is a legal issue, I'd be given blame me. And city attorney said, I should direct you to bring that to the hearing if you can. Then that might mitigate any kind of personal frustration in you. I'm sometimes asked, well, what do I do if someone someone emails me something? I can't cut that off. I can't unsee that, right? What do I do with that? What you should do with that is forward that to staff. Let us know about that you received that communication, and then we will do what needs to be done with that in terms of sharing it with everybody, making sure that it's not just a communication to you and you alone. If someone reaches out to you, tries to talk to you and says, well, I can't come, what do you do with that? I'm busy that night, it's my whatever, kid has karate, and just on that particular night, I can't come to council. So now that you're cutting me off, I try to talk to you, what do I do with that? You can encourage that person to provide written comments. I think in most, correct me if I'm wrong, staff, I think in most hearing contexts, we do allow folks to provide written comment if they can't come to whatever kind of hearing it is.
Yes.
And sometimes we get none, but sometimes council, you will see that in your packet, an email or two from people who can't come. So we do, anybody in the public who's listening, if you can't come to a hearing, a quasi judicial hearing, you're not just out of luck. Please, your input is sought and welcome, and we'll figure out a way to get it here to the hearing. If you just bear with us to get it to the hearing, and not to individual council members. So that's quasi judicial actions. Ex parte, what else do I want to say about ex parte? Staff are not parties, so you can communicate with staff. You reaching out to John, me, Dylan, to say, I don't understand what's in the packet, or why is this missing? Or I don't, or why is this here? That's okay. I would encourage you not to ask a lot of questions outside of the context of the hearing about the substance of it, right? But maybe if it's a logistic question or a procedural question, or truly like I can't find this in my packet, that's okay. Staff, we are not parties. So you can communicate with us, even when something is a quasi judicial hearing. I've been asked before if site visits are okay, or is that like getting information outside of the hearing? Site visits are great if it's a land use application, or even a liquor license. I suppose anything concerning property that might be a quasi judicial matter, you can go. You can look with your own eyeballs and see what's out there. I will tell you, there are, pivoting quickly to another issue, do that on your own, right? There are issues with you doing site visits as a group without the proper notice, because that.
Being given a tour by the property owner?
Was that?
What if the property owner?
Is the applicant?
Yeah,
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
There you go, ex parte, very good, right? Yes, right, if or let's say a proponent or an opponent of an application. Hey, come to my property because I want you to see from my view what I see. Well, I'll come out there, citizen Y, but I can't talk to you when I'm there. I can stay on the street and see what you want me to see, right? All that's public information, sort of like what a judge would take judicial notice of, right? Stuff that we can all see. You can go out and look at that stuff with your own eyeballs, but yes, don't communicate with parties. Don't go as a group, because that would be a meeting under the sunshine law. And that's the last thing I'll plan on hitting here. And that's called, it's the second topic addressed in the memo. The law sometimes called OML or open meetings law, but really colloquially and in the law itself referred to as the sunshine law. That's another important legal issue for you to be aware of now as counsel. That law, sunshine law, specifically and basically provides that when 3 or more of you get together to talk about city business, that is a meeting under the sunshine law. So what? Well, meetings under the sunshine law have to be publicly noticed. We record those. If there are meetings, not like this, but if there are meetings like your business meeting, we have to do minutes, right? There are certain procedural requirements and logistical elements as well to meetings under the sunshine law that we have to follow if something is a meeting under the sunshine law. At least 24 hours notice is the big thing. And notice of how the public can also attend that meeting are big, because that's the point. The meeting knows, if the public knows you have a meeting, but they don't know how to get there or watch it or listen to you, who cares? That's not really meaningful notice. So opportunity for the public to, again, view your meetings and participate at the appropriate times is also something that's required under the open meetings law. That's pretty self-explanatory. Those of you who maybe were around on council or on other city bodies or were paying attention to council during COVID, know that no matter what, we can figure out a way to make that happen, whether it's virtually or in other means. The important part, the overriding goal that we strove to meet during COVID was to maintain that public access in a reliable way, so that at least when we couldn't be in the same room with each other, the public could still see and be a part of the business that city council conducted. That's carried over to today. I think it's personal note, not a legal note, expanded the amount of people who can participate
Yes.
sometimes, right?
Yes.
And who can be involved with local government, which is great. And so, anyway, go back to wax on about that, but going back to public meetings, providing meaningful notice, providing the public the chance to view and see what you're discussing, and at least view it, if not have input on it. The trickiest thing, probably the least intuitive thing, I think, about sunshine law are written communications. And let's talk about social media, going back to social media or electronic communications. The open meetings law was drafted a long time ago, decades ago, prior to maybe Blackberries even. So texting, social media, smartphones, the way in which people communicate really isn't really well addressed, I don't think, personal opinion, by the law. And so the Sunshine Law does expressly say that email communications can be meetings, right? And what are email communications that would be meetings? The law, I think, recognizes that when emails become conversational, when emails become more than just a unilateral communication, when emails become a reply, then they run the risk of becoming a meeting. So when Wonder sends you your packet or the link to the packet on Friday, say, hey, reminder, here's when your meeting starts, and here's the link to your packet. She's reaching out to all of y'all at the same time. Well, that's not a meeting. That's, I think, a communication push. And it's perfectly fine under the open meetings law, and it maintains its ability to be fine. What would be problematic is if the mayor responded all to that email. Sorry, because you're right there, but I'll use you as an example. If the mayor responded all, hey, everybody, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page about agenda item 6, and then Lisa responds to that, and you're having a conversation on email. Even if 30 minutes pass between your emails, I'm highly concerned that you're engaging in a meeting under the Sunshine Law. And why that's problematic is we haven't noticed that. The public can't watch you two email back and forth, or all of you all in that communication. They can't watch you have that conversation like they could if you were in council chambers. So the practical takeaway that I would give to you on that topic is, please don't reply all to messages that are sent to all of you. And please refrain from having email conversation with 3 or more of you on the same string. It's perfectly okay for you to email each other and have those kinds of conversational emails. And again, perfectly okay with staff. The thing that could get us into trouble is if you have those communications electronically in groups of 3 or more. And I do think that extends, as I referenced the law being sort of archaic, I do think that extends to posts. If you're replying to posts on social media, tagging people is fine. I don't think that's a conversation. But if you start having a conversation via any kind of platform with 3 or more of you,
How
I
does
think
that
that's
fall
probably.
under the ruling though that happened in Douglas County with the school board? I think it was a year and a half ago, where I had a conversation with Chuck, and then Chuck had a conversation with Scott. Scott had a conversation with Jeremy, and it was to deliberately circumvent the Sunshine Law, and they ended up in court over that.
Yeah, I know. I was a little, maybe you can tell, I didn't agree with that decision, because the Sunshine Law clearly provides the ability for you to have individual one-on-one conversations, in my opinion.
Well, especially if you kind of, I don't want to use the word, but yeah.
Well, but if
Sorry.
you're planning,
Got where I was for a second.
I think it was because they were deliberately attempting to circumnavigate that.
Yes.
But
Sunshine
you're
Law.
allowed to petition, I think, as a council person. That's the reason that you can have the one-on-one, right? So if
Yeah.
I'm trying to convince you guys of something,
Lobby.
I have to be able to lobby to you individually. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as I'm being very open and saying, I'm gonna talk to Scott, Chuck, and then I'm gonna talk to Lisa and Jeremy and everybody is gonna know.
Great.
Yeah.
I think they got in trouble, you're right, Lisa, because it certainly appeared, whether it was true or not, that it was an attempt to pre-wire a decision to not have the good
Open-
sausage baking
open
of decision,
dialogue.
yeah, happen up there, which is where it needs to happen.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that tripped them up, because I agree with you. You should be able to lobby
Yes.
individually, but I think if you were lobbying with the intent to break the law, I think that's what got them hung up.
I think that matters. It does. I think your intent. And, you know, you're all smart enough to know, I think, when something sort of feels funny, sort of seems a little like maybe not right.
Smells like a snake.
Yeah, then you know, you probably shouldn't be doing that. I have every bit of trust that you all have that good judgment. Those are the things I really wanted to hit on. There are more things in the memo. I'm happy to talk about anything else legal before I cede the floor to far more interesting things, like people who want to be on boards and commissions, yay. But if you have any questions for me about anything we talked about tonight, or anything in the reference material I gave to you, or really anything legal, just
She looks at me because I email her frequently, like, hey, what about such and such?
That's
No.
why the bill is so.
not at all.
I was like, oh God, what am I doing to this bill, because I'm back and forth with Carmen.
Not at all. No. You know what? I know it's a joke, but I am available to you all, and I do want you all to be comfortable reaching out to me. I do represent final legal note. I represent you as a group. I represent the city. I don't represent you or you or you or you or you, and you all know that. However, sometimes things come up as a council member that you don't know how to deal with, and you don't want to broadcast to everybody else. Maybe you don't even want to tell Andy. If you are comfortable telling Andy, tell Andy, and he'll tell you to email me. But if it really is something you just don't know what to do with, again, in your role as counselor, I am more than happy to talk with you about any kind of legal issue. So I'm glad you mentioned that. It's never a problem.
I'm that one.
All right, well, we have two more issues on the work session, and before we move on to those, I just want to make sure that no one has any additional questions for Carmen.
Thanks for this.
All right,
Good.
thank you, and thank you again for the pizza too.
You are absolutely welcome. Anybody want pizza?
Next up is a resolution for housing goals. Jonathan, I assume I'm gonna kick that off to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. On February 12th, we talked about potentially considering a resolution that would allow staff to engage in some bigger conversations about creating the multi-jurisdictional housing authority that has been kind of being explored for the last year in Quick Creek County. And part of that was coming up with several objectives that should be met by such an agreement so that the city can feel comfortable with the work. And so what I wanted to do is, before bringing the resolution to you, I wanted to outline what I thought they were based on our conversation. There's one here specifically that's not, I didn't write down, and there's a reason, but I wanted to talk about that first. Kate, you had mentioned identifying projects that would happen first. And I think that there are some that exist right now that could happen. We've talked about several of them, the city projects to look at city-owned properties. Similar efforts are underway in Georgetown and Empire as well specifically. But the problem is that we haven't really had the conversation to put everybody together yet. So I know of several projects that are likely to happen, but I don't know priority-wise, like how they shake out. So I wasn't 100% sure exactly how to handle that as a goal.
What I would think it is similar to how you guys came up with the road work that you were gonna do around the city. Throw them all out to council and let us all kind of prioritize what we think, and then we can discuss, and perhaps council come up with the timeline then, of course, with your
Okay.
input. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, would you like me to put something about that in the resolution for the greater group, or is that something that we want to take on at the city level?
I don't know. What do you guys think?
So my question would be, how involved would our housing authority be with the individual properties that the city is taking on? Would this also fall under the jurisdiction of the housing authority?
I think that what would happen is it could help. And so it would still be a city project, and however we manage that, whether we issue an RFP for a developer or whatever we do to make that project a reality. But what the housing authority could do is they could coordinate all this work for us. One of the other things that they're likely going to try to do is do project management. So if we do end up with like a senior apartment building or something like that, they may be able to manage that property in the future once it's developed. So I think that, I guess what I'd say is it'd be a partner role. But I think that what we would, the reason I'm asking this is because I think the city would want to prioritize our projects still and not have that happen at the county level. So,
Yes.
and that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so do you think that I had said the local control bit and like the preservation of local character. And I guess I'll just read the objectives for the crowd. So there's several objectives. The first is local control and compliance, meaning that projects should comply with our standards, regulations, and community expectations. We should focus on the multi-jurisdictional housing authority should focus on building affordable housing that addresses the needs of our residents in Idaho Springs. Ensure access to quality housing for all community members with a specific focus on creating and maintaining housing solutions that are financially accessible to a broad spectrum of the population, especially vulnerable groups and seniors. Strategic housing development, meaning in a balanced approach to housing, with us knowing that we're not going to just put density everywhere. We've got to be reasonable about how we do it. Maximizing financial support from grant funding, tax incentives, and other financial mechanisms. And financial independence and program diversity, meaning develop a broad range of programs aimed at addressing housing needs. Explore revenue generating activities, forming strategic partnerships, and implementing innovative housing solutions to ensure the sustainability of the organization and reduce reliance on external funding. So I would either add another goal there that says that we would want to prioritize projects that are happening in Idaho Springs, or I just wanted, that was my discussion point I had.
I mean, I think at the meeting that we had, we kind of came to the conclusion that one of the most likely goals that we could achieve is the aging in place and, the incentive to do that. I mean, that is really where I'm gonna go, because again, we don't have property that is viable until we have water and sewer that's, there. So as long as we stay on the focus that aging in place is one of our major goals, I'm on board. I mean, I'm sorry, helping people age in place.
I understand.
I am gonna age in places. This place right here.
Is it all right if I-
All your local compliance and that we would pick our own projects and then work with the housing authority to manage these, because I like the idea that there could be some management, because that would help the housing authority become financially viable.
The way I was envisioning it is like, if there's a development project in Idaho Springs, or potential for a development project, it could be one of our sites that we're trying to work on, or maybe somebody acquires land and they want to build something there. What the housing authority could do, for a lack of a better term, is the hand-holding part. That takes a very, very long time in planning to make sure that they have their application and all the materials they need and all of that kind of thing. And then they could also help them access financial resources. So then what would happen is that developer, or whatever it would be, would still submit what usually is going to be a final development plan. There might be what's also called an code of plan development that would also go along with it, just depending on the size of the development. Most likely though, a plan or a final development plan for most projects we will be doing, that goes to planning commission and city council. So what would happen is the organization would be generally familiar with what we do here in Idaho Springs, and they would help make sure that they get an application put together so that when we get it, we can not necessarily expedite the process, but it takes less time to process so that we can keep projects on track. And then we would be a partner in that work too. Our planning staff does this all the time, every day. We work with people on questions and things like that. But they would be a resource to us to kind of, there's a lot of hard parts about planning for people who aren't familiar with it or who are doing it in a new place, and they can help with that.
Okay, I'm not trying to be nitpicky, I swear. Does this mean though that the municipalities within the housing authority make the decision about what's important within their city limits, and then the housing authority supports that? Because I can see a conflict there where the housing authority says, well, we're not sure if that's really the best way to do it. And I don't want to give that up as a municipality. I don't want to hand that over to.
That's why I wanted to put that as the first goal, the local control goal. And I think that the way this is working, task 2 of the IHOP project, which is the overarching project, is a code review for each of the municipalities and for the county. And the goal was for us to look at our code and think about like our local goals for our communities. And because like I said, we're not going to build 20-story buildings all over the county. There's a couple places where there might be more density, and there's a couple places where there might be less density. Silver Plume is a good example because that, like, to Kate's point, that might be a place where we can fix up homes to make it more easy for people to age in place and things like that in different kinds of programs. And I think that's gonna be a really important aspect of our program is each community maintains its own local autonomy and flavor, because we don't want, it's not the city of Clear Creek, there's a lot of little area, I mean, even DLD area is like a distinct area in the county, and we wanna make sure that people's homes remain their homes, so it's gonna be a little harder that way because we're not like one, unified rule set, but at the same time, what it'll do is it'll just make sure that we maintain what's important here.
How many people are gonna be on that board? 7?
I think that is a pretty good number for a board. It gets a little unwieldy with voting and all that kind of stuff if you get bigger, but I think that it could be a good, that could be a kind of something we express to if we have a preference.
And that's of course not decided, but I do think that's a good number.
Right,
Assuming it's probably 7 or 8.
yeah.
Well, the 4 municipalities.
I'm trying to figure out how you're gonna divide those up and are you gonna have like what we essentially call wards?
Yeah.
Where you're gonna have 2 from that end, 2 from this end. It's gonna be an interesting.
Number of municipal, like you've got 2 from each large municipality, 1 from the small ones, 2 from the county.
Yeah, but what about unincorporated?
That's the county.
Well, that's what I mean, but how many do they get? They have the majority of the population.
No, I said no.
Well, then we would have the majority of the population.
Nobody really has the majority per se.
It's
they got the
900.
majority, but- Yeah, but if you do 8, actually it's 2, it's 2 from Idaho Springs, 2 from Georgetown, 2 from the county, 1 from Empire, 1 from Silver.
Okay,
Just get you 8, otherwise it gets in the middle. That's work.
and do Martin and Danny go with the county?
The general population of the location.
Okay,
Georgetown being slightly smaller than Idaho Springs, by just a little bit, but not by a lot, a little bit.
right,
But it covers. We have to get a higher density.
okay.
If that
Hey.
makes any sense.
Jimmy, I saw you had your hand up.
Yep,
Only-
sorry. And forgive me if I'm off topic, stop me here, but speaking of developments and plans and different stuff, I keep getting asked about the skate park and forgive me for maybe not remembering. Was it did we finally determine, is it gonna be down at where the ball fields are? Or this?
It
I
is.
see on it.
Yeah,
I see
on the little T-ball field. And then
Yeah.
Jimmy, on the north side, so it gets the most sun.
Gotcha. Okay, I get it. And do we have just a rough timeline? Because I've had the same people ask, several times over and over, and I'm kind of embarrassed to give the I don't know answer. So, like roughly a time of.
I can answer that. So last week, we got recommended to receive a $1.25 million grant to get the project built.
Yay.
So we are moving forward like full steam ahead. We've got a little bit of environmental work to do just to make sure we dot the i's and cross the t's, but I think that will be like starting activities late summer. And then that's gonna include, we gotta move that bandstand. We wanna make sure that thing gets moved intact. So that's not a big project, but something first. And then we'll be like, just depending on the weather and concrete and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of the time.
Cool. Thank you very much. Because I remember it was talked about where like the bus barn, the parking lot, kind of in that area may have been early on, and I apologize for not remembering exactly because there were so many plans and drawings on that. I remember that meeting, but anyway, thank you guys. I appreciate that, Jonathan. Thanks, buddy.
Yes, sir. Would you guys like me to put a goal about board size and about like something about a project list from the city or something like that, or?
Where I was going with that is like, I'm not kind of like, are we putting the cart before the horse? Because until we have the board put together and then lay out the objectives for that housing board, right? Doesn't that kind of make more sense to do it that way then? But then protect the fact that we locally are saying, kind of hands off Idaho Springs projects. We're not going to tell you guys what to do either, but collectively, what are we trying to go for?
Yeah, because Summer Plume has very different rules than we do.
Absolutely it
They're
does.
completely different.
So I don't want to impose what we are looking at on them either, but
Exactly.
I think we have to come together as a board to create our mission statement, our list of goals.
That was, in the beginning, I had like kind of a more abbreviated list of goals for that exact reason, because I think the housing director and the board do need to do some amount of planning on their own for them, because we do want them to stand up. We want this to be an organization that can support itself. And that's probably not gonna happen if they are trying to do things that is impossible. But I do think that the way that we can do this collaboratively is because what I would like to do is share this with the other municipalities, specifically our goals, because they're gonna want it, they wanna do the same thing that we're doing. We're going first because we have the most knowledge of the project, basically. And so what I would like to do is come up with some reasonable goals, because I think one of the other true things that is not a bad thing, but the county and cities just have different ways of looking at things, which ends up being slightly different prioritization. Not that anything's better or worse, but we've just got to create these goals so that there's like guidelines for the conversation. And then we can, once we do that, I think it'll be a little easier to build the, the action plan over the next 3 years, which that could be their goal, is once the organization is formed, that they form a 3-year action plan that's approved by the city maybe, or something like that.
Well, not only the city, but
Yeah.
all the municipalities.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I think though allowing all the municipalities to have a piece of autonomy though is important,
Yes,
so that it's supported by the whole, because anything that helps our housing in this county, it doesn't matter which municipality it is gonna help housing in the entire county.
Right, absolutely.
You know, we're not such a huge county that stuff on the east side, stuff on the west side are gonna not help the whole county. But I do think it will help collaboration if everybody feels we have a little bit of autonomy.
I think all the municipalities are on the same page, and I think the county also understands that. So, and that's why I think, again, that first objective should say local control, like very
Yeah.
clearly. And I think that, as we work together, there may be opportunities in the future for a recommendation, like maybe they make a recommendation to the council and say, hey, this is something you could consider that we're hearing a lot about. Maybe that's something that happens in a work session, and then you guys would have the ability to consider
I
that, but
actually
it
like that.
wouldn't necessarily have to be forced. Nothing would be forced in this situation.
right.
I like
Anything
the goals
else
in this.
on the housing goals? Then we'll move to the last
Mayor, I
item.
might just add, the next step will be, John will get some final form, and it'll come back to council for consideration as a resolution at our next regular meeting.
All right,
Really,
2 weeks.
yeah, really quickly too, so I'm not adding another objective, the 5 listed are okay? Yeah, 6, yeah,
6.
okay.
all right, last up is boards and commission applicants. And I want to welcome everybody, and I also want to thank everyone for expressing an interest either to be reappointed or appointed. And it's really good to see you. I'm glad enough of you decided to come in person even, so that's really nice. I believe everyone that was requesting consideration, it's all with planning.
We have
One variance.
Right,
Yeah, one variance.
right, there is a point, yeah, thank you, there is a variance,
How
so,
many seats are available?
2?
yeah, I thought it was, I
2
thought
and
it
an
was 2.
alternate? 'Cause there's 3 that are on planning right now.
Who is on planning right now? Chuck? Who else?
Chuck, Cindy, Uchi.
Well, I know, but they're up, but who's, obviously.
The 3 that have asked for to be reappointed are Wishi's and
Mhm.
and then they need an alternate.
So, right now, there was just one for variance, and there's an opening on variance, so, I mean, that's easy, right? I mean, so, and then as far as, planning, we have 2 openings, and,
3 reappointments.
I think everybody's probably very pleased with the existing folks, as far as reappointments go. They ask, is council comfortable reappointing the ones that have requested reappointment?
Of course.
Okay. All right, so that looks like that will be a unanimous decision. And we still have 2 more to appoint, and I apologize if I'm off. Did we also need an alternate on the planning?
2? Cindy says 2.
2?
Yeah, because Lisa was one.
Yeah, I was one alternate.
Yeah, and we were down. Gosh, weren't we down one, Jonathan?
I feel like we were.
So do we have 2 seats and then 2 alternates? Do we have 4 people? We don't have 4 people
I
for
don't
that.
know, you got 3 reappointments, let me just make sure it's straight. Essentially, you've got 2 people.
To fill the
requesting to
seats.
Fill the open seats.
Come on over, Wonder.
With no-
Yeah.
Wonder's here, she might be able to help us out.
We have 2 alternates for planning, 1 regular, 2 alternates for variance, 2 alternates for HPRC.
I'm sorry, I didn't think we had any applications for HPR.
We don't, but those are just our empty seats.
There are a couple folks interested that missed the deadline, so I think we could probably get a couple applications if we reopen it.
Let's do that. I mean, I like what county's doing. It says until filled. Let's leave that
That would
open.
make it a lot
Yeah.
easier.
I think, well, first of all, people feel like, I can't get to that, but I want to do it. So maybe just change that for the future. I think it's a good idea.
So we have 3 reappointments for planning and 2 alternates.
Yes.
Okay. Because we have 5 letters.
And can planning people be also variants?
Yes.
Okay.
Can't be on. There might, I don't know if there would
I
ever
know.
come, I'd ask, yeah.
That
I
was
just don't know
ruined with me.
if there would ever be a
It wouldn't get
conflict.
Yeah, it was great.
So I guess if there's a conflict, somebody would just have to.
But there can't be a conflict between variance and planning. Cindy, no. When
I
has
asked the
there
same
ever been
question
one?
with Wonder the other day because somebody, but I wouldn't think so. It doesn't come to planning, variance.
Right,
comes
it
to
comes to
you.
council. So I'm gonna recommend that the alternates for planning also serve on variance, if that is something that they can do,
Well,
if they want to. Because it would be really great experience to have both sides of that.
Well, variance
knowledge.
doesn't, like, when was the last variance? I think it was last year.
They're very
March
rare.
of last year.
Yeah.
They're very
We
rare.
don't see variance very often.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why.
Yeah, that was the HPRC decision.
You should probably keep it separate, and let them apply for variance.
We've got 1 opening on variance.
We need 1 regular member and 2 alternates for variance.
well, we only had 1 person express an interest.
So we
Correct.
have that.
She was being
To be
reappointed.
re-up,
Yeah, to
to be re-up, so we
She's with
still,
us, Drew is with us. For variance.
Oh, hi. Didn't know you were online. Thank you. All right, so,
Sign them up, is what I say,
right,
before they change their minds.
So would that mean, we would do our 3 reappointments for planning, and make Katie and Jefferson our alternates for planning?
That's kind of how I see it. Just by what's in front of me, reading the all this place now.
I think that sounds great. I do have a question about that. Long time ago, we had, when we were in planning, that we would ask questions of the people that were sitting as alternates. I guess you guys aren't doing that anymore, but it is a great way for people to learn about the issues on planning. Otherwise, you're just watching and you're not learning. I don't know how council feels about it, but even though you can't vote, I think that the alternates should participate in the discussion.
Like a non-voting participant.
Yes.
We do that on the boards.
Well,
This has been a really big conversation.
yes,
I know, that's why I
I
it
brought
think
it
this
up.
might need a work
Yes,
session
it has.
with
I've been
attorneys.
that person.
We do it on the communication advisory board. We have 2 non-voting positions.
I was on that, I was a
That actually
non-voting
work.
position on the fire authority, and it helped me learn. Like, I was able to ask questions.
That's going back a day or two.
I was a few years ago.
Wow.
I think that,
forgot about that.
didn't we
was
do
a minute.
it
It was
that
just a
when it's a
minute.
board meeting, they don't sit up front when we're voting, but they're in the audience and then they can participate in it as if they were public
Yeah,
commenting.
our attorneys are not. I think that this may be a policy issue that we need to settle with the attorneys.
Yes, we do.
It might require
Let's do
like a
it.
work
Yeah,
session, but
that's it.
because Cindy, I think you're right, that'd be a great way to handle it. And if we need to shore it up with, you know,
And we can-
And
an
we-
adoption, we will.
Yep, and that's how we've been doing it, and it's worked out great because our alternates have been participating.
Yeah,
That's
They
awesome.
come to the meetings, and then when you're short, then they're.
Well,
There you
and
go.
that way they have the additional experience from coming to the meetings and they're ready to plug in when there's, you know, like a regular position available.
Well, that's how I learned, Cindy, with you guys. Yeah, I was an alternate.
But I do think, because there's been discussion in both, planning and HPRC, about how that runs. I think there is not a consensus with the attorney.
It's caused actually a pretty big issue in the last couple of cases we've done on planning commission.
Let's solve this.
We need to, I think that's a good idea.
But it's also, that also spreads out to our other commissions. Because I know on HPRC, I have not run stuff when we had an alternate the way that we were running it on planning, because I wanted my alternate to be able to pop in at any moment.
That's what we did for the CAB, the alternate voted in the absence of the voting member, they both from the same organization.
We're alternates able to ask questions and be part of a conversation, like,
Yeah, we did that for the last 4 years prior to actually changing the JEDCOM. It was hugely effective. Because when we were short a member for some reason,
They knew
we
what they were
were
talking
in a
about.
position going, I wish we had a quorum, we could vote for this.
Right.
We had that backfill and they were fully aware of what was going on.
that's the thing, they need to be fully aware, like, you don't wanna throw somebody in if they don't know what the conversation is or what the situation is.
We've also had members of the committees told at the last second that they're not allowed to participate as was anticipated. And I think that's caused some just general concerns on cases.
Sounds like a big conversation.
All right, so it is the desire of council to have the existing members to carry on. And then the new applicants to be brought in as alternates. And I think we have more than enough positions. And I'm happy that we had enough volunteers, frankly, to fill as many as we have. I know HPRC has been a problem for years.
But we have a full house in HPRC, so even though we don't have alternates,
Well,
This is a
we're just a little vulnerable without at least
And we can,
one person in the wings.
is it all right if staff goes ahead and we reopen that application? Because I do know there's a couple people interested. They just-
Yeah, and I think that was a good recommendation. I think Keith might have made it
Do you
about
mind doing that?
until filled.
Until filled.
Filled, yeah. I think the county's doing it because they have the same problem, so.
They've got a huge number over within.
All right, anything further? The staff need any more direction or? I will adjourn for about 5 minutes for a comfort break, and I want to thank everybody very much
yes, thank you.
for coming. Hey, Chris, how are you? How's it going? Good. Are you at Marion's tomorrow morning? I am. That's cool. Awesome. Hey, thanks for coming.
Hi, how are you?
Appreciate it.
Right here. Hi, Cindy. Well, I'm on you.
So we did some scope of authority. So that's what we're doing.
Right, and that's pretty basic. What I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
Everybody. Yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm working on tasking. Also, these are really old things for and it's one of those, what we're doing right now. What I did is I identified that will allow us to participate. We don't want to give up. Same thing.
Yeah.
I am first of all,
To engage in those conversations so that we can figure out if we're actually. When I get that.
So Idaho Springs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have 2 sandwiches, my window is 12.
Yeah.
Generally.
Oh, no, sometimes it's a lot of times about before the house gets out. Like, buildings in there. I say yes. Whatever. We want our elected officials to say like 2 minutes action.
So that's what like our. So this is.
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to see if you have a screen and definitely stuff. Yeah. Exactly what I
It's well, you have to. And that's, I say yes.
I do the sign in on YouTube. I think so. It's good.
I'll check that out. We just need to.
I know, I'm coming.
I know.
Working my way in that direction.
Right, take care.
I thought that was weird.
And also,
Yes.
She just gave me the sheets. Yeah. But I'm glad. I wasn't just.
I am glad that we have.
We can go together. It'd be fun.
We need combo, I think.
Hey, I appreciate that. Like, you guys, yeah, we can all line now.
The ones that are like on the website.
Not excited about
Okay, yeah, so what I'll do is, I've got a link in there now. To put some originals that
I would like,
But I'll go in and change that out. Right, yeah. Yeah, cool, all right. Of course.
I've got something additional to add.
because I'm on HPRC.
That is the,
Sure.
yeah, I definitely stop by that. Yeah, cool.
So I should probably just tell you, I sent John a communication earlier from Chris McFarland. I think he's on the homeowners board as well. So I just wanted to be disclosed that I had actually passed that on already.
Cool. Is that yours, Scott?
Okay.
Thank you.
Just leave him anywhere.
Jonathan, no rush, but let me know.
We're ready to rock.
We're ready, okay. Hello, I'd like to welcome everybody to the February 26th, 2024 regular council meeting for the city of Idaho Springs. We'll call to order at 7:04 PM. And we'll start off with a roll call, please.
Jeremy Jones.
Here.
Janine Mariani. Here. Jim Clark.
Here.
Scott Pennell.
Here.
Lisa Manifold. Here. Kate Collier.
Here.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Here. All please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. We have an agenda before us tonight. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the agenda for the February 26, 2024 meeting.
Thank you, Lisa. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Janine. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Does anyone tonight feel they have a conflict of interest? Hearing none, I will move to approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from February 12th, 2024.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Kate. Any discussion of the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will move to approval of the bills. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to move to approve the bills to February 26th, 2024.
Thank you, Jeremy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Janine. Any discussion of the bills?
I have a couple of questions with the AD Miller services for the public work facility. Is this just the 103,000? Is this a regularly scheduled payment? And if so, how many more? Because I don't think I was on council when this was.
And I do believe that that was scheduled. Andy, that at this point of the construction, is that correct?
We get monthly invoices
Okay,
from AD Miller, so that's one of the monthly installments as construction progresses.
okay, so they're being invoiced as construction is ongoing?
Correct.
Okay,
That's competitive. And we have our city engineer, services and project manager review those invoices and then make recommendations to staff for payment. And Paul Crane also, as our public works superintendent, reviews it over and
Okay.
ultimately approves it.
thank you.
Anything further?
That was the one from me.
Okay. Hearing nothing further, roll call, please.
Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
Janine Mariani.
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Lisa Manifold.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes. Next up, public comment. I believe we had someone sign up in advance regarding a topic.
Jerry, you can come on up. Can you please just state your name and address for the record?
I'm Jerry Sander from Idaho Springs. I'm actually the property manager for Riverside Townhomes. I don't actually live there. Most of you know me. I know most of you. So I've been property manager at the townhomes off and on for about 20 years. And somewhere between when I left in 2016 and came back in 2020, John Bordoni at the time had met with all the homeowners, and they were wanting to do a bike path down Riverside, and part of that included restructuring and regrading that whole section along Riverside, repaving. I have a copy of a easement that the board members at the time signed. It was in January of 2018. So it's somewhere around then that they did all the construction changing or did the grading. They ripped out our trash area, trash dumpster area. Also ripped out some of our fencing in order to pave and redo the grading and everything. So when I came on in July of 2020, it was mostly done. I did meet with John Bordoni on a couple other issues that needed to be finished up, such as the dumpster enclosure and that kind of thing. But ever since then, whatever grading they did, now all the water, the ice flow comes up into the complex and is freezing garage doors closed. 4 inches of ice, and it's just gotten worse over the years. We've had our guy that does our snow plowing try to back drag and try to do, help the issues that way. We've had gutters redone, trying to take the drainage somewhere else in hopes of fixing it, but it's getting worse and worse and worse. And some of the people here from the complex that have personal issues will speak here in a minute. But I think that generalizes our issue. And Chris from the city crew has been down there numerous times and is well aware of what our situation is. And he's been great in trying to help us out, bringing down some salt or some ice melt and that kind of thing. But it just, throughout the winter, it's just every winter we're dealing with this. And the grade is like zip. There's nowhere for the water to go. It melts and just refreezes, and it's an ice skating rink in most of the complex. So I think that is a broad overview, but now I'll let the people that signed up.
So I'm gonna exercise a little mayoral discretion here. Normally in public comment, people are allowed 3 minutes, talk about whatever you'd like to talk about.
Yes.
In this case, I would allow some back and forth, because typically it's our turn to listen.
Yeah.
And there normally isn't back and forth.
Okay.
But I will tell you, I'm ashamed to admit this. I was not aware this was going on. Certainly not to the level that we've seen in these photos. I suspect there are also members of council that had no idea.
Right.
That either it was going on or it was this extreme. I mean, I saw one photo, there must have been 4 to 6 inches of solid ice inside of somebody's garage.
Yes. And because the association is responsible for the structures, if they need repair, it falls on us. And it's really not our problem, but yet it falls on us. So,
and I just want to make sure I fully understand this, because I do remember the dumpster enclosure being redone.
Yeah.
So
Did we,
the water did not flow to that south side and freeze in the past?
No.
Wow.
Not,
All right.
It did to a small extent if you didn't keep up with it, but since this was all redone, it's gotten worse and worse.
All right.
So,
Did we have an outside company do that? That road back there, or was that?
I'm sure we did.
Yes.
well,
That seems like an engineering
It's
mishap.
almost no grade, and I can tell the materials. I used to own 2913, which is one over from 2915.
Okay.
And on a bad winter, if we had an inch and a half of water in the garage, it was a rare occasion for the 4 years we had that place. And I walked down there the other day, when they redid everything, it looks nice, but now it has no slope.
Right.
So anything that melts forms like an 8-foot area in the shady part next to the
It's very
garage.
shady, right?
And refreezes, and it was that way over the weekend when I walked down there.
Yeah.
And the road surface is a little higher now than it was
It
previous.
looks higher.
So as the road surface got redone, that's raised a little bit over time. Drainage has been changed in that one. By fixing one problem, we essentially caused another problem.
Yeah.
That's just-
Mayor and council, if I will, and Jeremy, I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. I know that, and thank you very much for letting us actually go back and forth with our constituent who signed up for public comment. But Jerry is very, very, very correct. This isn't happening just on Riverside, and I think that we need to probably contact the supervisor or somebody at ACC who was in charge of the Phase 3 Project Plus. But this isn't just an epidemic down on the Riverside, for all the residents and stuff down there, but really anybody on the southern side of even Colorado from about 9th to the east is really suffering from ice issues that And I'm sure Lisa, you know, you probably see your neighbors dead across the street doing the same thing. Obviously, I mean, they're chipping 2-3 inches of ice on every time, you know, we get a significant storm where the grade was totally incorrect. And that's what I think Jerry's experiencing too, if I'm not mistaken, Jerry, right? That you know, now it's backing up into people's homes and different things where unfortunately the folks on the south side of all that Colorado Boulevard, they are responsible. I'd like to say we, but thank God I'm out of there. But I had an ice flow issue too, big time, and I couldn't keep up with it. But the north side, on the sunny side, you know, the city always took care of. That's the greenway, that's, you know, the sunny side, etc. And then, but yet we're, you know, the southern exposed folks are to maintain that, and if they don't, then they're subject to, you know, tickets and fines, etc. as an exit amount of time from the storm. If somebody slips and falls, it's not really a fair gig, especially when we as a city paid so much for drainage and proper snow melt, etc. on that side of the road. So I really have to say thanks for letting us go back and forth with you know, public comment this evening. But I do think that Jerry's right, and I honestly think there's an issue, and it's probably through the whole phase 3 project that isn't Jerry's fault. It's not the homeowners or the business owners' fault on that particular side of the road where everything was incorrect, where she's experiencing and others 4+ inches of ice that they got to spend trying to keep themselves out of a lawsuit, basically. So.
All right, well, thank you. And I would like to open the opportunity for Jefferson and Donna to also comment.
I appreciate you letting us go back and forth like this. It helps.
Well, and this is an extraordinary circumstance. I mean, we've all have seen historical shading, and I'll just use a pretty old, pretty tall building like the Elks Lodge.
Right.
So it's been shading, right, the road for since like 1904. And the castle's another good one. It's right on my street. And that's historical. It's something that's been problematic because the buildings are so large. This really concerns me that, you know, we had never had 4 to 6 inches of water / ice inundate garages. And people, it's apparent to me, you know, you push a garage door opener and it's probably, you know, frozen shut to the floor. So it's serious. And again, I think many members of staff and council were not aware that this was happening, or certainly not to this degree. But I'd like to invite Donna up next. Is the next person I have on the sign up. Welcome, Donna.
Can you just come state your name and address for the record?
I'm Donna Kirkwood. That's my husband, Steve. We're at 2801 Riverside Drive. We are the westmost unit in the complex, right next to the building of garages. Now, she told me I could protect my 3 minutes by walking over here. You've seen these pictures, but I think they make a very significant point.
Oh, and we do have those in the packet. They were
with
included.
dates on them, though, because I have a specific point to make.
Okay.
When we bought this place in 2010, we had 0 issues. And I just asked my neighbor yesterday if I was misremembering if we had a drainage issue before the new road. And he said, absolutely not. So I'm not misremembering. And what happens is, what they've done, we have a run of about 75 feet from the end of the garage to the end of the car to the east of us. And what happens is the water drains like this. It isn't lack of drainage. It is specific drainage into our space. and then from the middle of the road down. And the reason I know this is I was out there slinging the water with a snow shovel and not understanding why I wasn't getting ahead. And I could see it running right back in. And if you don't send it over the crown of the road, it's going to come back. The pictures you see there, I'm 74, he's gonna be 78. Now, I could still wield a sledgehammer, but I'm not sure, since I can hardly move at the end of the night when I'm done with this, that it's a brilliant idea. Most of our guests are older, so you can see where I'm going with this. We're not kids. If we fall, it's not gonna be a good thing. We have had a solid ice slick there from February the 2nd, and the pictures will show you that, all the way through when we came up on Thursday. And every weekend, I'm out there smashing his ice, shoveling the ice. He's helping me. I've even got a vacuum cleaner there because it melts. When we're not in the middle of the day, whenever it melts, and when ice refreezes, it gets harder.
Yes, it does.
So what I could bust up with 1 to 2, 3 whacks 3 weeks ago, now takes 5 to 10. And I finally can't get it. I have to put ice melt on it and wait. I carved the space this wide because I knew I had an 82-year-old coming over to my house, which is why you'll see a pathway to my door, because I did it again. But it's been solid ice at least 5 to 6 feet out. There's no way to get to the house. You can't do it. A man was going by and I almost hit him with ice because I'm watching, but he was on a bike and he was behind me. He was real nice. If I hit him, he didn't admit it. But he told me that when they did his road, they showed up and asked for drainage. And I thought, well, heck, why didn't we ask for drainage? And then I realized we didn't need it before this. So we bought our own sand because I asked, Chris, I think it was Chris. The guy, really nice, came back on the 2nd, brought me some sand, 20 to 1 sand to ice melt. Brought me some of that so we and the neighbors next to us have a whole lot of 2 small children, including a 1-year-old. So we could take care of those 2 because I shoveled for them. They have enough to take care of their small children. So he comes back, he helps me. We're on our own again. The next week I call in, I talk to either Patty or Diane. In less than an hour, somebody came out with sand and ice melt. I went and bought 100 pounds of sand and we've got ice melt. We carry it in the car so that when we drive up, we can sprinkle the ground so we can even get out of our vehicles. There's my point. This is extremely dangerous.
I noted the dates. It clearly is out 5 or 6 feet, maybe in some spots even more. Does anyone have a guesstimate how the length, is this a couple 100 feet? 300 feet?
I'm underestimating at 75, basically where the drainage runs from is the end of our garage.
Yes.
And storage, all the way past us. And then the neighbor unfortunately doesn't get his car out of the way. So it's all the way to him. And then it runs back from him and all the way in there. And again, if I didn't throw hard enough, from the center of the road. I'm sorry to be selfish and speak just about me. The whole complex has problems.
But it's basically from 2800 Riverside down through 2919 Riverside. And like Jimmy said, everything on the south side.
Nothing more to add, except for I am out there, you know, people drive over my crud. I'm out there chipping 2 to 3 to 5 hours a day, every weekend. And again, I got the shop vac out and we did better this week because I emptied the shop vac 6 times because it kept melting in. So our the ice, if you saw it this weekend, it would have been much worse. If I hadn't, we shoveled the entire length, then I shoveled the ice, then I smashed ice in through it, and then I shop vacked it. And without that, it would have been worse. And you'll still go over there now and you're gonna see on either side of my path ice like that. And you can see my sand. Okay, thank you.
Donna, thank you very much. I would like to invite Jefferson up. Thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight.
Hello, my name is Jefferson Litch. I'm at 2915 Riverside Drive, so on the other side of the block here from Madonna. So just to reiterate a lot of the points already made, you've seen all the photos that we had do to clear out the ice from our garage. That was actually my garage when we went out there. And yeah, we've kind of noticed that it definitely struggles to drain, definitely away from the garage. And we can see where the new asphalt was done when the road was completed. And you can definitely look back using use Google Maps to look at what the road previously looked like in the street. And there used to actually be a street drain directly in front of our home. I'm sure you've all seen that before too. And there is no more drain anywhere on that block in that section. It appears that when they redid the road, at least, that they attempted to have it divert naturally down to the creek, just past the last of our units there, in between the end of our HOA property and then the next single family home right over there. So it doesn't seem to be working very well, obviously. And I know that the recommendation of at least our city code is to have, I think, a 1% slope for a driveway towards the street. I'm not a surveyor by any means, but I'm sure it's flat right now, and that's kind of the issue that we're facing. So yeah, was out there just like Donna was the other week. Probably spent the entire day. We just had to get a propane torch. It was awful. Was eventually able to melt it though. It was about 2 inches of ice, and now it's just completely salted all the time to try and keep it away. But yeah, the water just, it's like it's build up right there on that edge of our driveway. So.
Well, thank you. And I would like to ask council, if you have additional questions for anyone who has used public comment tonight, please, they're still in the audience with us. Does anyone have any additional questions?
My question is actually more for council itself, because when you look at Jerry's application, she's looking for council action. How can we address this? You know,
Well, we won't be able to take action tonight. But I do think that this is something that we absolutely need to dig into. I don't think anyone here realized this was going on or to this level. This is ridiculous.
I'll ask my question again. This wasn't an inside job. This was something that we had
Yes,
professionals do. Okay.
right.
Is there any way to pursue this conversation with them? Is that something we can
Well, and
discuss?
this is part of, you know, the research we're gonna have to do, because obviously now years, plural, have passed. And I would be surprised if liability extends that,
Right.
you know, to that length. I wish we had known, but you know what, honestly, it might have been the case that the particular winter of 2019, 2020 didn't produce these type of
did
results,
have a
so we
couple
might not have
years.
had the info, I mean, I don't know.
Right.
But I do know that this is a big problem, and we're gonna have to look into if there is a shared liability with the contractor. But something needs to be done, because this situation is intolerable.
is there something we can do as a city to help them like break up the ice now, or help like with a particular plowing? I don't know, I'm just asking.
They're right. They
Yeah.
created a natural drain that doesn't drain, because I
It
walked
drains
down
into
there.
the units.
It drains into the units,
Yeah.
and so there's nothing really versus tilting that entire road up and facing it the other way, which is not gonna really end the problem. It's just gonna put it to the other side of the street. Yeah, I just didn't, it seems like. a
So,
very
you know,
odd
I
sentence.
would think that we'll have to have some engineers look at this to see what's possible
Mhm.
with, you know, the elevations that are there. Look at the liability from the last contractor. Obviously, this has not produced the desired results.
Also starts with the attorney.
Yeah,
But can we also do something to help them, like,
In the meantime, it's.
like
it's a
5
matter
hours of
working-
chip and ice
It's
is
about working with
ridiculous.
Paul to get the back of it out there to cut the ice. And then change the plowing policy, the city plows next to the buildings.
right.
It wouldn't kill us to do that.
No, I think
Move the yellow way
I
and
think
make
in
that-
this location,
Make that a
it
standard part of how we
makes
provide the
sense
rest of
just
the winter.
because
Yeah,
there obviously are locations that are also plagued by this, but they have been historical in nature.
Right.
And this is I believe is not the
It's
situation.
man-made in
Well,
nature.
by designating that with doing easement as the greenway path, we're essentially maintaining the greenway path, no different than we do out here, right? We plow that on a regular basis. So from my perspective, it's no different to plow this frequently through every storm to make sure it's sanded on a frequent basis after they go down with a backhoe literally and break the ice
Break
out
the
and
ice
sit
out.
down, which we had to do in Summit County in previous experience in this.
Right.
Get the ice out of there and maintain it. Essentially, we're in a position where we can do the rest of the winter.
That's what I'm
And come
thinking,
up-
like, how do we get through the rest of the winter? How do we
And
help
that's
them
how we
the
get
rest
through,
of
break the ice and we plow on a regular basis and keep it sanded through.
Well, we put
The
a
next couple of
priority
months.
on the plowing.
We make it a priority and then we'll work on solutions.
Down the
As
line.
we get into the spring and the summer, we can actually do construction or concrete or whatever that might entail. I have no idea what that entails, because it's totally different now than it was historically. I had to go down and look at it, because
Right.
Donna, please.
I don't know which day it was, but recently I was out there smashing away and I noticed you guys have this cute little tractor sort of thing that plows the walkways that are right at the end.
that's what I'm
of us.
referring to is
And I
a
kept
solution for
thinking,
the neighborhood.
gee, I wish I could be that guy to come plow in front of our garages.
Early on when the snow first falls.
Yeah, even, because then you don't have the snow to melt to come back. Is it gonna eliminate it? No. Will it reduce it?
Sure.
Yes.
I think that's a solution from my perspective is that very machine does the initial plowing. Then we come through with a regular plow truck and we move it even farther over. We want to get it on the north side of the road for that duration from like 2000 down to
Sure.
2019.
I was gonna say, can we cordon off a couple spots that we can dump the big ice? Cause we don't want it to go someplace else and just cause another mess where it comes over the road and now
I
it's,
think we get rid of the ice and we haul it someplace else where it can melt.
okay, I'm okay with that. I
don't think it would
just,
put us out of the city to break the ice, load it into a dump truck and take it somewhere where it can melt in a safe environment
Sure.
and eliminate the hazard versus hope it doesn't flow back into their.
right,
garage.
yeah, cause it will, I mean, it's.
Yeah, it will, like I said,
Yeah.
from living there, if I had an inch and a half in my garage 3 times in the 4 years I was there, it was a rare storm.
I'll just
It
say
wasn't
that
common.
when I walk down there, I wear crampons. I actually wear things
Right.
that are made for walking on ice. So I've noticed it. I mean, honestly, because almost everywhere in town, I didn't think about you guys in particular. I feel bad, but I didn't. I just was like, this is how it is when you live in the mountains, I guess, but
Well, you know. we
not
bought
knowing that
crampons.
but
So
not
we
knowing
get out
that
of
it's
the
happened
car.
recently. What's that?
We bought crampons.
So then you
So
get
we
a
get
car,
out
get
the
them
car,
to their house.
and it didn't work.
Oh,
We tried. So then that's why we're carrying buckets of sand.
no, well, that's scary, but I'm just saying, I was aware, but I didn't realize it was something new, so I apologize for that.
So I think you went above and beyond the Call of Duty here. We have a lot of photos. Gave us a really, really good idea of the magnitude of this problem that you're facing down there. And also you taking the time to come here tonight and you know, you always have to put yourself out there. It's never easy public speaking, you know, to council and such. And I want to thank you for giving of your time and spending the extra minutes to let us field some questions back and forth. Because I'm telling you, we really do care and we would like to make things better.
So then I would be in favor also of this being a priority to get us through the winter, so they're not doing this, you know, until May.
Yeah, and we're at a bit of a disadvantage. Paul, who is always here, and is in our superintendent of maintenance, he's on vacation, but we will still have a discussion with his fill-in and see what we can do as a stopgap measure.
I can see if the guys can take like the skid steers down there and scrape up some of this ice that remains.
So
And
yeah,
maybe
the
we could
trick
put
is take
it,
it back, go down or not, the skid steer and scrape it down. Here with you at the meeting and show you
It is,
how to do it. There's some tricks.
I mean, you would know a little bit, I mean, with, this is like, looks 4 to 6 inches kind of thing.
I think maybe the skid will take care of some of that. The backhoe with the arm could probably chop up maybe a little bit more strategically.
That's it, yeah.
But then maybe dump it over here on the west side, on the other side of the speed bump.
Oh, I got you, so it
and
melts into the
and
creek.
Bridge. To where it would actually melt into the creek
Yeah,
instead of into their garages.
I absolutely appreciate that.
Excuse me, but a fair amount of ice melt goes into it to make it possible for me
That's what I
to
was
beat it up. So
wondering,
you really
do we
want
wanna
ice
put
melt
it
in
in
the
the
creek?
creek?
Well, hopefully in the future you won't have to use
Oh,
that to poison the
yeah.
creek, so,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that's the goal is that we get it before the ice melt has to go down.
So
but
if
we're
I
always
could
aware.
add just one more thing, Gilson that intersects us. They're not necessarily, I mean, they're kind of on the south side, but because of that little strip in between there, you know, we get some ice buildup in there also. We do have a homeowner that insists on parking on the city right away. And we can't get in there to shovel snow or do anything else. The ice builds up around his unit. And I talked to Zach last week about should he even be parking on that city right away? You know, what is from what we read from the city 2018 rules and regulations, it indicated that, you know, it was the city's right away and there shouldn't be people parking there.
And I frankly don't know if that's posted. You know, no parking, I'm asking, I honestly don't know.
There's a lot of city parking down there. I mean, there is like designated lots that say this
Right.
is city parking. But historically, everybody parks in those lots.
Well, which is fine, but this happens to be the drainage that runs down through there that they're
Is
parking
it the
on.
one on the corner where he's kind of has his own little, it's a rental unit? Yeah,
Well, it's not a rental unit, he owns
but
it.
it's right there on the corner.
Yeah, but he, yeah, we're having some real issues with snow removal there. So I just, you know, he didn't seem to want to cooperate to help us out, so. Anyway, appreciate you looking at it and whatever you do.
All right, anything further from council? Thank you very, very much.
Yes, thank you.
I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, take care. The city board appointments will be the next thing after public comment. And I am making the motion that all of those who requested reappointments be reappointed, and that those who wished to serve on our planning and variance committee who expressed letters of interest be brought on as alternates. And do I have a second?
I'll second that.
A second from Kate. Thank you. Any discussion? Oh, roll call, please.
Jeremy Jones. Janine Mariani. Jim Clark.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Lisa Manifold.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes. Do we have the finance officer? Not tonight. Jimmy, I see your hand is up. Oh, okay.
No, I just didn't put it down.
He's just waving at us all the time.
Yeah.
And
I was just saying hi to the dais. What's up, guys?
but we will move to a resolution, starting with resolution number 3. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution number 3, series 2024. A resolution approving a water supply agreement between the city and Robert and Christina Edwall and Thomas and Ashley Kulitz.
I want to thank you, Kate. You did a good job. Do I have a second? Second from Jeremy. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
Janine Mariani.
Yeah.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Lisa Manifold.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Thank
We have an ordinance first reading under ordinance number 7. And I would personally like to make the motion because I have some additional verbiage in there, but I do happen to know that Lisa has a comment regarding this.
I just would like to let the council and all of our audience know, this property is for the hot spring site to become a local historic site. And they have had extensive conversations with the Historic Preservation Review Commission. I think they're gonna be a great partner to work with, but what it also does is protects the parcel that has the original building. It has the two different springs on the north and the south piece of the property and the caves themselves, which, as well as the pieces that are not necessarily within our period of significance. And I think that it is an excellent idea for us as the city to be able to work with them and maintain this regardless of who the owner may be 50 years from now.
All right, I am going to make the motion, see if I have a second, and then we'll entertain comments after that. And I would move to approve ordinance number 7, series 2024, an ordinance designating a property known as 302 Soda Creek Road, Indian Hot Springs, as a local historic preservation site. And I would also move to enter the following findings and direction on an application received to designate the Indian Hot Springs, 302 Soda Creek Road, Idaho Springs, Colorado, as a local historic preservation site with 4 items attached. The preliminary investigation indicates that the property is eligible for designation. Second, the city council has received the owner's written opinion of the designation. Third, a public hearing on the question of designation will be conducted on March 25th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in these council chambers, and staff is directed to provide notice of the hearing as required by the city under section 22-23 parentheses A. Do I have a second? Second from Jeremy. And any discussion?
No, I think it's gonna be great.
All right, Lisa, thank you.
Of course.
And roll call, please.
Jeremy Jones,
Yes.
Janine Mariani, Jim Clark,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Lisa Manifold,
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes. All right, we don't have any second readings tonight. We had the city attorney here in person earlier. And city administrator, Andy, no request for action. Did you have anything further to share with us
I
tonight?
do tonight. I have 3 items. The first is we'd like to pick a date for our council retreat.
Oh, yeah.
Council retreat. And you should have in front of you at the dais some suggested dates. We're looking either Friday or Saturday in April and May. And typically we go 9 to 3. In the last few years, we've had our retreat at Tommy Knockers. But we can certainly look at other spots as well. But I'm hoping if you have access to your calendars, we might be able to come up with several dates that might be good for all the council members here and then get it booked. We're going to ask our regional manager, Todd Leopolds, to come back and lead us, facilitate the conversation.
Well, let me ask, just to narrow this down, is there anybody who cannot make Friday, keeping in mind, as Andy said, this has historically been from like 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
12th, Friday.
Okay, on the 12th. Anyone else?
I can't do the 12th either.
Okay. All right, well, that actually is pretty promising. So Fridays, except for the 12th, seem to be open. And if everybody would take a minute and check your calendars for the 4/5, 5/3, and 5/17 dates.
The only one I'm not available for is May 4th.
Okay. Wait, oh, I see, that's on it. Yeah,
That's a
Saturday.
Saturday.
Okay.
Everybody else is good.
Are you trying to do one of those 3, Chuck? The Fridays are the best.
Yeah, that way you can preserve your weekend if we can do Fridays,
Sure.
but I really, I was open to do Saturday if we had a couple people that just categorically weren't gonna be able to do Fridays.
I can make any of those 3 other than the 12th work.
Okay,
April 5th, May 3rd, or May 17th.
Is 5th, Friday the 4th, April 5th work for everybody?
yeah, I mean,
Make it
it's,
simple.
let me just throw out there, the date of 5/3, which is a Friday. Would that be acceptable to everybody?
5:3 is fine.
Okay, Scott?
Yeah.
All right, Kate?
Yep,
Okay.
I'm in.
All right, Andy, we have our date, 5/3.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
The next item is the Colorado Municipal League Conference will be held June 18th through 21st in Loveland this year. And registration just opened, so if there are any members of council who would like to attend this year, if you'd let me know, the best way we found to register folks is to give you a hard copy of the registration. You fill out all the choices you want, and then we do it online and then pay for it online. So if you would just let me know if you'd like to attend.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, nothing further?
The last item is that there is a change to the agenda at the very end. It's not really a change in the agenda, it's just that we'd like to remind you of when the next work session will be held. And we are gonna have a work session next week.
Okay.
What's that date?
Fifth.
The fifth.
It's the 4th, Monday is the 4th.
Monday the fourth, Monday the fourth. We'd like to go at 5:30. We've been starting a lot at 5:30 to try to make the most of our time at work session for the regular meeting. But we're booked already for the 11th.
Yes.
11th, thank you. For that work session before our council meeting. So we really have 2 items that need to go next week. So we will have a work session next Monday, starting at 5:30. I think we have 2 items right now.
All right,
That's it.
sounds good. Jonathan, you're up next. Just wanted to make sure.
And my apologies for not submitting a staff report.
No, we're good, but I think we've got a couple things to celebrate. We know that we got the recommendation for the $1.25 million for the ball field redevelopment. That is, it's gonna take more, but I mean, that's a giant step forward. And then we also got $200,000 for the Matty Dam.
Yeah, we're kicking on all cylinders so far, grants this year.
Right.
Jesus.
And Jonathan, I just want to make sure you didn't have anything further.
No, sir, we've been working really hard in our admin staff about looking at processes and procedures and trying to make things more efficient for our clients and our customers. And there's always more work to do, but I just want to say I'm really proud of the staff here. We've been working really hard and I think they're doing a great job, so.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Wonder, no request for action. Just want to make sure you didn't have anything further to share.
No, I don't.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. And then, Chief, never a dull moment. Boy, that was a good report. A couple pretty major incidents.
Sure.
But I wanted to make sure you didn't have anything else to share tonight.
Just a quick update on the transition to Jeff Con. That happened last Wednesday and went off pretty smoothly. I just wanted to share that there's some few things that we're working out, like with our computer systems and theirs and things like that. But I talked to the director of EMS today and he felt that it went really well too for them. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. And Ed, appreciate the report. Things are much more in normal parameters this time.
Better than normal parameters.
Yeah, so
I was walking around suspiciously thinking, why is it working so good?
well, good. I just want to make sure you didn't have anything further to share.
No.
All right, well, thank you. And let's see. I don't have anything.
Investigations are underway.
What?
I'm investigating my work.
Oh, okay, all right. And by the way, I also want to say, thank goodness, we have the 2 remaining folks that have the backflow preventer issues committed to having that changed out. You know, the last thing anybody at the city wants to do is shut a business down.
Right. I think that all we're waiting for is paperwork. And then that can be turned into the state and then we're done.
Okay.
Notifying people.
All right, good. So as Andy was saying, we are going to have a work session. So I know your packet says the next work session is March 11th. And please just be advised, it will be a week earlier, Jonathan?
On the 4th.
Yes, on the 4th.
Yes.
And then the next regular meeting will be on the 11th. Does any-
There's a work session that night
That's
too, right?
correct.
Okay.
That
I gotta
following
get-
Tuesday.
You're earning your keep, my friend.
Yeah, I gotta get that. on my
And does anybody have anything else to add before I adjourn? All right, hearing none, we're adjourned at 7:49.